I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power!
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and White House correspondent, joining you live from the nation's capital. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, D-R-N-I-I-Q, and I pop right on up, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or just tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. Now, for those of you that follow me at Dr. Nii-Quartelai on Instagram and all the platforms, you might have recognized a post that I put up recently. It was originally posted by NBC News, but it was a little clip of an unhoused Black woman right here in the nation's capital sharing her experience. We know that President Trump first said that crime was out of control here in Washington, D.C., and then said the homelessness encampments were out of control here in D.C., and is intending to use the federalized National Guard to get rid of these homeless encampments. And so the unhoused folks have a few options, but ultimately the president is hell-bent on getting rid of these homeless encampments. And so, she said, look, people don't want to be homeless. And she talked about her experience. Having had her home burned down, that was a part of how she became unhoused. And so it's important that we connect real human beings to the story around what's happening and the efforts that folks are trying to justify. That's what's happening here in the nation's capital. But counter to this, take a listen to what is happening in the city of Angels, in the city of Los Angeles, where Mayor Bass is working hard to provide citywide eviction prevention services and expand that into South Los Angeles. More than 1,000 Angelinos have been served in the first 2 months. LA Mayor Karen Bass and Mayor's Fund CEO Conway Collis, today they announced the expansion of a proven resource for Angelinos who are currently or at risk of facing eviction. We know a lot of folks that are unhoused, not everybody, but a lot of folks become unhoused after having been evicted. And so if we're trying to prevent folks from becoming unhoused, from becoming homeless, you got to understand how they become homeless in the first place. And one of those last stops before they become homeless is getting an eviction. And so in Los Angeles, city's family source centers across Los Angeles, they are now expanded and they're opening their first We Are LA Crenshaw casework office to help connect Angelinos in danger of becoming homeless to every resource available to them. As part of Mayor Bass's comprehensive approach to addressing homelessness, We Are LA caseworkers, they provide these individuals and families one-on-one personal support, helping them to overcome obstacles like filling out applications for services, using unfamiliar technology, language barriers, and accessing legal aid. And so if you are in need of any of these resources, be sure to contact the city's Family Source Centers and We Are LA hotline at 213-584-1808. That's 213-584-1808. Couldn't underscore the biggest contrast in leadership between what's happening here in the nation's capital under the thumb of President when it comes to the homeless and these encampments here, and what Mayor Bass is doing back home in the city of Los Angeles. Now, it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Are stimulus checks coming? What to know about Trump's proposed tariff rebate. USA Today is reporting that just last month, President Trump teased that a potential rebate could be attached to the worldwide tariffs he announced earlier this year. The White House has announced that some of the tariffs, which are disclosed on April 2nd, have raised $100 billion in revenue. Trump didn't provide further detail, not on the potential rebate, which are unlikely to pass Congress, except to say that they would only be available to people from certain income levels. The president would need congressional approval to authorize the rebate. And while details are scarce, keep your ears open as to what you really need to know about these potential tariff rebates. We know that Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri introduced a rebate bill. Unclear to me how much of that is just what's called a message bill, where basically, sort of grandstanding. They're putting that bill out to make a point, not because it's going to pass. But we know that there are a number of hurdles facing that rebate. And so, in short, don't hold your breath. All right. Moving along, NBC News is reporting that Trump says that he's going to request a long-term extension of the D.C. police takeover. I was on Tavis Smiley's show earlier today talking about this, how President Trump said today that he would ask Congress for an extension of the federalization of D.C. police. We know that this is a move that is unlikely to pass, as it would require Democratic support. Trump's comments come as the National Guard troops began deploying right here in Washington, D.C. yesterday, with some joining city police last night. The full contingent of 800 troops is expected to be operational by the end of this week. I can tell you right now that we're already starting to see more of a police presence, more of a military presence throughout the Capitol. We will absolutely keep you posted as these things develop. But when we come forward, you don't want to miss my conversation with Reverend Nicholas K. Young. He caught my attention as I was scrolling through Instagram early this morning, and I said, oh my goodness, I have got to talk to you on air today. And so when we come forward, I'll be joined with Reverend Nicholas K. Young. He serves as the young adult minister and social media director at New Bethel Baptist Church right here in Washington, D.C. He's also the founder of Black Boy Therapy, an organization dedicated to equipping parents and caregivers and educators with the tools to support the mental health of Black boys. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide, based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me! National news, the consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and really delighted to welcome my next guest, Reverend Nicholas K. Young. He serves as the Young Adult Minister and Social Media Director at New Bethel Baptist Church right here in Washington, D.C., but that's not all that he does. He's a licensed therapist, and he's founder of Black Boy Therapy, LLC. It's an organization that's dedicated to equipping parents and caregivers and educators with tools to support the mental health of Black boys. Reverend Young, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this space, the platform, and the work that you do. I'm beyond grateful to be here, like truly humbled and honored.
Well, look, the same here. A lot of people ask me, how do you book your guests for the show? And the reality is that guests come from a lot of different people. Of course, we have our booking producers that work very hard to engage folks on mission that help to lift the public consciousness and hopefully leave us a little bit smarter. But sometimes I'm just scrolling through social media and I stumble upon social media posts that I find compelling enough to want to share with our leaders, learners, and listeners. That's how I discovered you. There aren't a lot of people out there with Black Boy Therapy organizations, and in a time such as this, particularly in the nation's capital, I saw fit to invite you on to talk about that. And so, first of all, talk to us about the origin story of Black Boy Therapy, LLC.
Well, the origin story is I was in graduate school and I stumbled upon a startling fact, and that was that unlike never before, Black boys are the most likely to attempt and complete suicide, and that's unprecedented. It's a perplexing phenomenon in the psychological community. And I wanted to understand why. And that may be like, I guess, the genesis of the organization. But in terms of my care and affinity for the work, that's me work. We often say in the academy, right? Like research is me search, but it's also me work where I had a therapist when I was a young man who needed help with emotional regulation, self-esteem, dealing with bullies, just how to navigate life. And without my therapist, I don't know where I would be. And so I knew that Black Boy Therapy was a must. I knew it was a must for the community. I knew it was a must for the young brothers who look just like you and I.
Well, I mean, and what a time to offer those kinds of tips, tools, and resources in the form of therapy. A lot of our leaders, learners, and listeners know that my brother James died by suicide. And so on a very personal level, on a family level, mental health from the neck up and neck down is an issue that I aspire to champion. And you're doing exactly that. And so here we are in our nation's capital, where we are starting to see images and video of this increased presence by the National Guard. We're seeing Black folks. I've seen a lot of Black folks on video being stopped, being pulled over, temporarily detained here in Washington, D.C. This moment is awfully triggering for our people, particularly Black men. Talk to us about the social media post you put up on Instagram and why it was important for you to put that Instagram post up now.
I mean, I was leaving dinner at a place I often frequent, and when I walked outside, there are sometimes MPDs out there. Well, actually, MPD's always out of there, but sometimes they have mass numbers to, I guess, put control traffic and the flow of traffic. But when I walked outside, there were FBI agents in military fatigues. You had Secret Service agents. You had U.S. Marshal agents just standing outside of the park at 14th, as though, that was a high crime activity, a high crime zone. And they were staring at people and looking at people as they were watching, and just a presence of it seemed to be a presence of intimidation. And then they pulled over a couple, and the young man who was minding his business did not appreciate having been pulled over and had this interaction. Meanwhile, MPD is standing by watching this interaction. They're literally defenseless. There's this young man on a date. They take him out to do a field sobriety test. U.S. Secret Service, whose federal government function is to actually not only protect the president, but to investigate financial fraud. That's what that agency is for, is now doing traffic stops. So what I realized is, and something that we all know as Black men, and as people whose skin has been kissed by the sun, is that following the law does not mean you won't have an interaction with law enforcement. Our Blackness in an anti-Black world is associated with criminality, and you have people in high places now who will publicly say that where we live, where we frequent, what we do is completely criminal, and it's totally okay for them to think that. So I don't feel safer, and I don't think our people are any safer because police are here. And so because of that, I just wanted to speak to our people and get as much information out there as possible to keep us safe.
And so, speaking of keeping us safe, I want to give you an opportunity to repeat, what you posted on Instagram that is really a sign of the times. I mean, my heart breaks for the fact that you felt compelled to have to share those tools to keep us safe. Mm-hmm. My heart breaks for the fact that post went viral, and mm-hmm. there are thousands of people that have liked that post thus far. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of shares of that post thus far. For our leaders, learners, and listeners who don't follow you, tell us what you posted.
Yes. So and my heart breaks having to say it. But I encourage our people to use GPS when they are going somewhere, even somewhere they know, because we know on Google Maps and Waze, it reports the presence of police. And I told them that I do that. Even if I'm going to the grocery store that I always go to, I still use the GPS because I want to know if there's a speed trap or a police officer on my path. I talked about doing a 360 of your vehicle before taking off, meaning checking your headlights, checking your tail lights, ensuring that your insurance is up to date. Sometimes we have auto pay, and if your check didn't come from work, I work for government agencies, do contracts. One of my contracts didn't come back for a month, right? So the account was right. If I had auto pay, maybe it didn't go through. So making sure your insurance is up to date, making sure your registration is current, making sure police can't pull you over for petty reasons. I also encourage them, like, brunch culture is a thing. People like to say, oh, don't drink and drive. Well, what if I just had one drink? I'm not drunk legally, but DC is also a city that has a zero tolerance. So if you have any amount of alcohol in your system and officer conducts a field sobriety test and thinks that you're drunk, even if you're not over what is the typical national normal limit, they can still arrest you for DUI and say that you're intoxicated. So I don't think that anybody, last night when I went out with my best friend who's here, I Ubered because I had a drink. I don't even want an encounter where someone can just assume that, oh, I'm drunk, or can say I'm drunk, as people lie. and police officers have been known to lie. And something that came up in the comments that I think is super important, having dash cams in your vehicle, so that dash cams that don't only go out, that go in, so people can see what's going on in the cab. Making sure you share your location with loved ones so that they know where you are and where you've been. And then also you can something I think was the most saddest thing, but I think is real, is having a life insurance policy, which is something I did yesterday. I updated my life insurance and updated my beneficiaries and increased my plans.
Hadn't heard that one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I think that just took it to a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
How did it feel updating your life insurance policy?
It's I mean, James Baldwin says to be conscious and to be Black is to be in a state of rage. And as a therapist, we know that rage, anger is a secondary emotion. I'm sad. That's the reality. I'm sad. Not only did I update my beneficiary information and increase my policy, I wrote a will and sent it to my mother and my sister. In the event that some cop from some part of this country who's never really encountered a Black person may assume criminality just because of me, and that interaction doesn't go well. I had to have a talk with God and grieving the potential that I may not have long life. It's a sad place to be.
I mean, to hear anyone, any young person have to take all of these steps in order to protect themselves, in order to make sure that their friends and their loved ones are protected, that their community is protected, that's extraordinary. But also hearing this from the mouth of a licensed therapist, hearing this from the mouth of a minister, a young adult minister, right? To me, it takes on a whole another level. And I'm so glad that you're here, because this is real talk. Here we are in the nation's capital, just a couple days in to the takeover of the Metropolitan Police Department here in DC by President Trump, under the guise of making DC safer. What do you say every time you read that line coming out of the Trump administration, coming out of the mouth of the president? What comes to mind when you hear this repeated characterization that somehow DC is crime-ridden, it is overwhelmed by crime, such that it requires an extreme intervention of the president of the United States, federalizing the National Guard and taking control of the DC Police Department?
I appreciate the question. I oftentimes in the last few years have felt alien in this country because I believe in facts. And the facts state that the most violent crime happens in red states. The states that have voted for President Trump consistently as he's run are the states with the highest levels of murders completed with firearms, the highest levels of suicides completed by firearms. So if you're actually trying to keep people safe, you should send federal troops into the old Confederacy again. That's what you should do. If you're concerned about law and order, felons should go to prison. I think that if you're really concerned about law and order, so should pedophiles. That's my thought. I think that that it seems to be not based in fact, and also because if your concern is driven by, oh, I really care about law and safety, you're going to go to the places where these crimes actually occur the most, which would be some states down that tend to vote a certain way. They have the most murders by weapons, and I know that because I do research in this area, and then I think it's just hypocritical that someone can be a 34-count felon and claim to be a proponent of law and order and be endorsed by police unions. It's very nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. So that's where I am when I hear that rhetoric.
When we come forward, I want to get your thoughts on an exchange I had just yesterday at the White House with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt regarding a 15-year-old with disabilities who was detained at gunpoint by federal authorities, by ICE agents in Los Angeles, where our home station is located. I want to get your response as a therapist and as a concerned citizen of these United States when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Black Boy Therapy founder Reverend Nicholas K. Young on the DC police takeover and the fallout.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. U.S. track star Sha'Carri Richardson is apologizing after her July arrest for allegedly hitting her boyfriend, Olympic gold medalist Christian Coleman, at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Richardson says past trauma kept her from fully accepting his love, adding, quote, "I can't apologize enough," end quote. Coleman has defended her, saying she should not have been arrested. Wendy Williams' court-appointed guardian confirmed her diagnosis of dementia and aphasia and is seeking to extend her guardianship to November 2025, despite challenges from her family and former husband. Williams denies cognitive impairment and says she's determined to regain her freedom and remain in New York. And former Governor David Paterson is backing Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams for re-election, despite a Siena poll showing Adams in fourth with 7%, far behind Democratic frontrunner Zohran Mamdani at 44%. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's a slow drive out of Santa Monica East 10 from Cloverfield all the way to the 5 in Boyle Heights. Tough on the 101. Southbound leaving, it looks like Agora Hills now, where we're seeing delays from Liberty Canyon Road. On and off ahead to the 170, 134 split. More slowing in Hollywood from just about Hollywood Boulevard as you continue into downtown Los Angeles. And it's very tough in Orange County. Ortega Highway is closed, that nice shortcut between LA and Riverside counties. Off limits at Gateway due to a crash and a huge gravel spill. It's going to be off limits for just over the next hour for cleanup. And alternates in place. You can take the 91 to the 15 or the 78 to the 15.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Venus Williams, at age 45, was given a wildcard invitation to play in the U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. The U.S. Open starts Sunday. Venus will be the oldest woman to compete in the singles competition of the U.S. Open since Renee Richards in 1981. Richards was 47. This will be the first Grand Slam event for the Compton native since 2023. The 7-time Grand Slam champion won the U.S. Open in 2000 and 2001. The Dodgers and Angels meet up for the final time this season tonight in Anaheim. The Angels are 5-0 against the Dodgers. Critical game for the Dodgers to regain some momentum. The Dodgers start a 3-game series Friday night against San Diego. Cleveland Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders suffered an oblique injury during warm-ups Wednesday morning. He was held out of the Brown practice with Philadelphia. Sanders was scheduled to undergo an MRI exam Wednesday afternoon. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details. Join the Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center for its 32nd annual Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves Short Film Festival, featuring 22 powerful short films by emerging Black women directors. See their visions, hear their voices. Saturday, August 16th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Writers Guild Theater, 135 South Doheny Drive in Beverly Hills. For more information, call BHERC at 323-957-4656 or email BHERC@bherc.org. Tickets may be purchased at eventbrite.com or at the door.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and he is Reverend Nicholas K. Young. He is the founder of Black Boy Therapy. He is also the young adult minister and social media director at New Bethel Baptist Church right here in Washington, D.C. I saw his social media post earlier today and reached out to him first thing this morning. Right when I got out of bed, I went over to my computer and I emailed him and said, brother, I want to talk to you because there is so much afoot here in the nation's capital. And I'm thinking about our people, all of our people. And we know that historically, particularly, Black men, have been, very vulnerable to police state violence. We are seeing an increase in the police state right here in the nation's capital already. Video and images of Black folks being pulled over by law enforcement We're also seeing an increased police presence across the District of Columbia. And this may last as long as 30 days. Who knows? But in the meantime, I think we want to focus on what can we do? What can we control for? How can we keep ourselves safe? And that is really the crux of this conversation. Before we went to break, I referenced an exchange I had with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt about a story coming out of Los Angeles of a 15-year-old boy with disabilities who was detained temporarily by ICE agents. There are reports from the LA Times and other outlets that guns were drawn at one point. And I think it begs the question, what is the administration doing to make sure that young people are not having any negative encounters, deadly encounters with law enforcement? I'm talking about the National Guard that's been federalized by the president. I'm talking about the ICE agents that seem to be adhering to a code that is different from some of the rules and policies that govern policing in cities across this country. And so, Rev, I want to give you an opportunity to offer some advice to parents out there that are unsure whether they have young ones that are, in K through 12, or whether they have young adults, that are heading back to college or heading away to college for the first time.
Certainly, I'm always going to encourage people to maintain hope. I think hope is a form of resistance. I think joy is a form of resistance. So in the midst of it all, we come from a people who have demonstrated that they are still human with laughter, even when hellfire is going around. So don't lose your joy, don't lose your hope. Maintain family connections. The small things matter. Texting and checking up on each other, having conversations with the people you love. There's a funny saying on TikTok now, go and touch grass. Take time to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Make sure you're filling yourself. I think some things that are happening right now are not only physiological threats where you see things changing, you see threats coming, but I think it's also a form of psychological warfare, where there is an enemy attempting to take your joy and to take your peace and to make you anxious and to make you afraid and to make you not live life more abundantly. So I do think that I would always encourage people to live. And I would also say to be smart and to be wise. That means to do things with the utmost discretion, making the best decisions possible. I avoid the police. I avoid interactions with the police. I avoid the probability that I'll see the police. And when I'm in interactions with law enforcement, I do everything possible to make sure I survive. That's not something I want to say. And I'm not someone who wants to make a god out of respectability politics. But I would rather say that and acknowledge that I do that than have people not think that I do that myself. That means, if you are pulled over or a police officer does say something, that these things that I wish I didn't have to say, but I actually don't even want to say it, but being polite and stuff like that, I don't even want to say that.
But, if it's a difference between being polite and walking away, or being impolite and being detained, or worse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are family members that are depending on us to come back alive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And part of my concern, part of the concern of so many folks right now, is, what are the rules of the road? We know that the National Guard is not trained in local policing. we know that ICE agents, are certainly not trained in local policing, and who knows what kind of training they get as ICE agents. I mean, these are the same people that are running around in unmarked cars, that are covering their faces, that are refusing to show any identification, that are snatching people off of the street on suspicion, not based on warrants, the same warrants that police officers have to get to detain people, right? They're not reading people their Miranda rights or any of that. It feels as if that they are no more than a vigilante group sanctioned by the president of the United States and this administration.
Unfortunately, I couldn't agree with you more. These law enforcement officers, federal law enforcement, and I'll just say that I was a member of the DC National Guard until March of this year. So I'm very familiar with the DC National Guard, and I have worked in emergency services since I was 18 years old. I'm a former firefighter. I've worked in a law enforcement capacity with the fire department. So I've worked as a first responder, and I will tell you that federal law enforcement agents are not local law enforcement. They're not trained the same way. They're not. They're just not. The agencies have their own specific tasks and functions that they are specifically trained for. While they may have some basic rudimentary training, you're just not a local law enforcement officer. The jobs are totally different, which means that the way you interpret situations are totally different. Also, federal law enforcement agents come from all across the country. You can be from somewhere where you have never had any substantive interaction with people who look like those who live in the city. And you could have been stationed in Washington, D.C., and your interaction may have been passing somebody, maybe meeting somebody at a restaurant, but you don't actually know Black people. Let me just say that. You don't know Black people. You don't know the lingo. You don't know how to identify X, Y, and Z. So we all look the same to you, right? We all look like whatever your profile of criminality is. That's your thing, and that's dangerous. It's seriously dangerous. It's seriously dangerous, and I think that I'm saying that because there are some people who are part of the Black community who think that they're safe because they went to college, or who think that they're safe because they went to school, who think that they're safe because they live in this zip code. That's not how profiling works. It's just not how it works. When it gets cold, I'm going to put on a hoodie. I'm going to put on a hoodie, and nobody knows the difference between me or anything. Nobody knows my resume. They don't at all. I could have a badge in my wallet. And matter of fact, that happened in DC in the 1990s. A white police officer killed a Black police officer, thinking that the Black police he didn't have on his uniform, thinking that he was a criminal. So you could be a whole police officer walking down the street as a Black person under these situations and be accosted.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And one of my high school best friends, Jazz, who has a movie coming out in October. It's called Stay on Hulu. He's making his directorial debut. But my high school bestie and I, when we were 18 years old, we had a negative encounter with a San Francisco police officer. And there's not an encounter that we learn about in the headlines where we don't think back to that moment, and how if that sequencing was just a little bit different, who knows what might have happened that night in San Francisco. In our remaining moments with you, it's not often I have a chance to talk to somebody who recently served in the National Guard. We know that President Trump has federalized the National Guard in Los Angeles. He's doing the same here in Washington, D.C. Have you been in touch with any of your former, fellow servicemen and women in the National Guard? And if so, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What is their experience at the moment?
I want to, due to the nature of this current administration, I would want to like not say. What I will say though is that anytime National Guard troops are activated, it is very disruptive to their lives. Very disruptive. Yeah, people say, "Oh, the troops. Oh, we like the troops. Oh, we care about the troops." Anytime you activate a National Guard person, I'll say this: a lot of DC Guard enlisted personnel are blue collar workers, and they work with their hands. They keep us up. They do HVAC. They're our barbers. They are the people who are the backbone of this city and the DMV region. And when they are activated for military service, oftentimes, though it's the law that the job take them back, their financial situations are terrible. Their families suffer because of it. They come back and they have a job, but their contracts are gone because that's the way their type of work goes. It is a very costly expense on them and their families that depend on them, their children. There's a lot of suffering and a high cost. Anytime you call up the DC National Guard on the troops that will be called up.
Thank you for clarifying for us what that experience is for the brave men and women who serve in our National Guard. It's in my experience, they're there to serve, and any opinions they have about why they're being called up to serve, they typically keep that to themselves. But they show up and they bear that sacrifice. Our thanks to Reverend Nicholas K. Young. He is the young adult minister and social media director at New Bethel Baptist Church right here in Washington, D.C. He's also the founder of Black Boy Therapy. Where can people go to follow you and to tap into all the resources that are available through Black Boy Therapy?
Doc, I'm so grateful for this platform. Thank you so much for all that you do. That's holy, divine work. At Nick Young's Life on all social media platforms. That's Instagram and TikTok at Nick Young's Life. And all my work at Black Boy Therapy is tagged in the bios of those platforms.
You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, Reverend Nick.
Thank you.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit NoTimeToWait.com, sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions, like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, joining you from our nation's capital, where maybe about a month ago, you might remember me sharing with you a story about a public school teacher named Heidi. She was physically disabled and on Medicaid and required a home health aide. And she was very worried that if the so-called big, beautiful bill, if that passed, it would become a big, ugly nightmare for her, because she depends on that home health aide to help get her ready to go to work and to be a part of the community, to be in community with other people. And so when I saw this recent headline, I immediately thought of Miss Heidi. NBC News reporting on a mother with cerebral palsy struggling to hire aides after private equity takeover. Might this be telegraphing what may be coming down the pike? I don't know, but like Miss Heidi, I can't stop thinking about Renee Christian. She's a single mom with cerebral palsy. She lives in Buffalo, New York with her 12-year-old daughter. And although her condition forced her to spend most of her childhood at a nursing home, she has resided in her own home for years with the help of personal assistants that she hires under the New York State Medicaid program. In April, however, Renee Christian's life was upended when the state forced her and her assistants to work with a new company administering the nation's largest consumer-directed personal assistance program called CDPAP. One by one, she lost nearly half of her assistants because they said they didn't receive the proper pay for their work. She now fears for the future living at home, where she needs help getting dressed. She needs help doing laundry. She needs help cooking meals. We know that Renee Christian is not the only one affected by the state program's recent takeover. Sources that spoke to NBC News said that there were a number of folks who described multiple problems since Public Partnerships LLC won the $1 billion 5-year contract back in 2024, replacing roughly 600 entities that had been administering the program. The issues range from assistants receiving checks for $0 to problems arranging for direct deposit, onboarding new workers, clocking hours worked. PPL, which has a staff of 1,400 on the New York program, is owned by not one, but two private equity firms. Its takeover as the program's sole administrator, it's triggered an avalanche of complaints with consumers unable to reach anyone to answer their questions, and assistants unpaid for hours that they worked, and unhappy with the reduced healthcare benefits. That's according to lawmakers, consumer advocates, and assistants alike, all of which were interviewed as a part of this NBC News story. It's worth noting that before the transition to PPL, roughly 280,000 consumers were participating in the CDPAP program. And since PPL took over, some 80,000 have left the program. So of the 280,000, 80,000 have left the program. At a cost of $9 billion a year, New York CDPAP, it's the largest personal assistance program in the nation. If this can happen in New York, what do you think can happen in places like Texas, in places like Georgia, in places like South Carolina, places where there's already Republican majorities that want to do away with Medicaid? They want to cut. And we haven't even seen the impact of the nearly $900 billion in cuts to Medicaid and what challenges that's going to create. And so this story is not intended to make you discouraged. It's intended to remind you why programs like Medicaid and Medicare are worth fighting for, why Renee Christian is worth fighting for, why Miss Heidi is worth fighting for. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More in our next hour with More Perfect Union contributor Al Reynolds and Isaac Wilson.